This is the first self-reflection video on the course. I'm going to talk a bit about the hierarchy of needs in relation to myself, about how I might be able to think about its relevance at different periods of my life, that kind of thing. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk about the self-reflection exercise that I suggest you go ahead with afterwards. I wanted to include self-reflection exercises in the course, mainly because I think training to be a therapist, it's not just about being familiar with ideas out there in the world, external ideas. It's all about being familiar with yourself and building on self-awareness and things like that. I don't think you can ever be fully self-aware, but I think it's good to try to reflect on these things. And I think engaging on this and reflecting about the different concepts and ideas in relation to yourself is probably the best way of learning it on a deeper level, if you apply it to your own stuff. But also it gets people in the habit of those reflective tendencies, which is really so important as a therapist. In relation to me then, I think a lot of these different steps or different categories I can probably relate to at different times in my life. I had to think about physiological needs, and the one that sticks out for me was a time when I was, I think, a teenager, and I was in the swimming baths, and I think I went too deep or something like that, and I was quite close to running out of breath. Those few seconds when I was underwater, I did get back up to the surface and I was fine ultimately, but I did have a bit of a panic, and for a few seconds I was worried very much about whether I'd be able to get to the surface in time. So at that moment in time, I was very much focused on physiological needs and nothing else. I wasn't thinking about finding a partner or how many friends I have. I wasn't thinking about if I was any good at my career or my job. I was really just thinking about getting to the surface and surviving. Safety needs for me come up quite a bit, or they did when I lived in my old house. I was often worried about my safety sometimes, frankly, if I was walking home at night and it was quite late. I wasn't sure what might happen. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was really just thinking about getting home safe. I also sometimes find myself having concerns about one day losing my house and not being able to afford it. Concerns that are really, I think, quite out of proportion with the likelihood of anything like that actually happening. Although you never really know, do you, what might happen? And I find myself thinking about that quite a lot for some reason, which I think is an example of safety needs. It can have a bit of an impact on how I navigate some things. If I'm at my local supermarket and I'm thinking of buying some of the fancy crisps, I think it can have an impact. I think I try and talk my way out of it sometimes, as though the difference between me losing my house in 20 years' time is whether or not I choose the fancy crisps or the home brand crisps on a random Tuesday night. And I don't think that really makes that much sense, but it is in there sometimes, and I think that's to do with feeling safe and secure. For belongingness and love needs, I really mainly think about being a teenager. I think most people can relate to this. And I think there's research that suggests that teenagers tend to really care about what everyone thinks more than anyone else. I was certainly like that, and my attention was mainly paid towards how many friends I've got, how popular I am, do these people like me, where am I in this imagined hierarchy at school and things like that. It's a bit silly to look back on, but it felt real at the time. And I suppose in the environment of the school, certainly in the environment of my school, the stakes were quite high, to be honest. And so, that was on my mind quite a lot. And I ended up doing stupid things just to make people laugh, or because I thought it might make people like me more and things like that. And it's the kind of thing that I think a lot of teenagers do, and maybe you can relate to that at certain points in your life. A testament to this is the fact that when I was a teenager, I was out with a couple of friends, and one of my friends was helping an elderly woman with her shopping, someone he knew, I think. And I remember thinking to myself, that wasn't funny at all. Why did he do that? And I think it's a testament to just how I was wrapped up completely in what everyone thought, that someone just doing a nice thing was a slightly alien concept to me, and it gave me food for thought at the time. I think I became less focused on belongingness and love needs after school. There was a time when I was really quite comfortable in that. I had a good group of friends, I had a partner, and I felt quite settled and comfortable, and I became quite curious about the world, and I'd never really been that curious before, not when I was in school, certainly. And I think this is a testament to, I guess, the privilege of having my physiological safety and belongingness and love needs relatively met, and my attention naturally just started getting paid towards other things. And like I said in the previous video, when I think about the motivation for doing this course, I think it can be a mixture of all kinds of different things, whether it's getting some money so that I can pay my bills and maybe feel a bit less anxious about losing my house, people understanding what on earth I do for a living, being seen in the profession in a certain way. Maybe there's something in there that motivates me. But I do think in terms of self-actualization, a motivator definitely for me doing this is to see and to challenge myself to see if I can really create something that captures what I believe the person-centered approach to be all about, and if I can do it via this medium, which is quite an interesting challenge in and of itself. I think that comes from self-actualization. I don't know where else that would come from. Anyway, that's what comes up for me when I think about the different stages. I did do the reflections beforehand and made notes so I can record it on here. Sharing a bit of myself like this is a conscious decision, and it's an attempt, I guess, to try and dissolve some of the perceived power that might develop as a result of this kind of medium where I'm recorded explaining loads of things to people. Also, though, I want to lead by example. If I'm going to ask you to do some self-reflection exercises that might take you a bit out of your comfort zone, I think it's only fair for me to lead by example, like I say, and have a go myself. Remember, with any self-reflection exercise, there's no right or wrong. You know you better than anyone else knows you, and whatever answers come up for you, that's the right way of doing it, whatever it is that comes up. You just pursue whatever you find to be the most truthful. What I'd like you to do then is to pull out a pen and paper, have a look at this triangle, maybe pause the video, and focus on each of these needs one at a time, and try and cast your mind back to a time in your life when you've been particularly governed by each of these needs. You might think of loads of examples for one and not many for another, or none at all for some of them. That's absolutely fine, don't worry about it. But once something comes up, get your pen and paper out and write a bit about it, and what memories you have and how that felt for you. I think it just gives you some deeper understanding of the hierarchy of needs if you can engage with it on a personal level. But remember, there's no right or wrong way of doing this.